maybe offending Muslims, and at the same time, some Muslims will do the same, because this is socially, we cannot control this.
Right.
But official point of view is very good. And
yeah, but the thing is, today the French president, he met with the heads of the Jewish community
yes.
in France. He did not meet with any leaders of the Muslim communities
yes.
in France. But don't you think again that this counters his statement?
Yes, maybe this will make the Muslim community sad in France, because, you know, if you a leader of the country, you should consider all the community, all the religion. I hope maybe next few days he will do the same meeting with other Muslim leaders there. But just I am stressed again, the security not enough. The security rules not enough for this situation.
Okay, the head of the country of France's Muslim community, he condemned and he asked all the preachers in France to condemn the attacks in their Friday sermons. Do you agree that now is a good time for preachers, be they in France or anywhere around Europe, or for indeed Al-Azhar, to preach the message of moderate Islam to Muslims and non-Muslims alike?
Sure. Now we should take a part in this situation, and Al-Azhar should have a good rule, especially by their language, French and English and so on, to present who is the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, who is Islam as a religion. What is this religion? Because, you know, I'm sure the majority there, they don't know a lot about.
Okay, sir, if you'll allow me to take a quick break and the second report for the evening, and a look at the international reactions to the attack in France. Let's take a look.
Governments meets in Paris on Sunday to discuss the international response in the terrorist attack. The meeting includes discussions on addressing terrorist threats, foreign fighters, and countering violent extremism. The meeting has been convened by French Interior Minister, who has also been the minister responsible for the efforts to track the suspected gunman. The European Parliament will also formally discuss the Paris attack on Monday. Meanwhile, world leaders have condemned the attack on satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo in France, an assault by 3 gunmen that left 12 dead and scores injured. For his part, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi condemned the terrorist attack, voicing Cairo's solidarity with France and underlining that fight against terrorism is a global concern. El-Sisi offered his condolences to the victims' families and the injured, saying terrorism is an international phenomenon that should be confronted and eradicated through joint international efforts. Saudi Arabia also offers its condolences to the families of the victims, as well as government and people of the French Republic, and wishes a speedy recovery for the wounded. While Lebanese Prime Minister Tamam Salam slammed the unacceptable and unjustifiable terrorist and expressed his sympathy with the families of the victims during these painful circumstances. For his part, U.S. President Barack Obama said that France and the great city of Paris, where this outrageous attack took place, offer the world a timeless example that will endure well beyond the vision of these killers. German Chancellor Angela Merkel also said that what has happened in France is indeed a barbarous attack against all of the values, while Russian President Vladimir Putin has condemned this terrorist crime and offered his condolences to the victims and their families. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, also condemned the despicable attack. Australia's Prime Minister Tony Abbott also expressed condolences to the families of victims, saying freedom of expression was the cornerstone of a free society. For his part, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said that they categorically condemned any cowardly act of terrorism, no matter what the motive might be, and they mourn all the victims and offer condolences to the families. Korea also strongly condemned the shocking terror attack on a French satirical magazine, vowing to join international efforts to fight terrorism.
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And for more insights, I'm being joined by Dr. Mustafa Kamil Said, Professor of Political Science at Cairo University. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
You are most welcome.
Let me ask you about how do you explain, how did you see the attacks in France?
Yeah, I think there are many reactions to this problem. First of all, this time, those who carried out these on Charlie Hebdo newspaper and on the Jewish kosher supermarket are French people. They were born in France, they live in France, they work in France, so this time this is not something similar to what happened in the US in 2001 when people who were not American citizens attacked American targets. This time it is French citizens who did this, and I think this would require an explanation of the conditions under which those people are living. We know that they are not well-educated people. They were doing jobs which don't ensure good income. They live in so-called banlieue or poor suburbs, and we know very well that there are some people in France who believe that people of North African origin, people whose families migrated to France, should not live in France, should leave France, and they are object to discrimination. So I think there is really a problem with respect to people of North African or African origin who live in French nationality. Second, those people, because of their conditions, they were easy for people who a mistaken interpretation of Islam, and therefore they directed them to attack the French newspaper and to attack also the Jewish supermarket. One should add also that somehow there is a sort of misunderstanding of freedom of expression in France and in Western countries in general. This freedom of expression, allows people to express their views the way they like on any matter. And I remember, having lived a long time in Europe, that Christianity also was object to, satirical comments, and even there were movies which made fun of, Christian themes, of Christ himself, and therefore, if people in Europe can make fun of Christianity, they can make fun also of Islam, and this is not accepted by Muslims.
Right.
But the reactions of Muslims vary on this. Some Muslims consider that they don't like this, but they would not try to prevent it by force. But those people, took the view that anyone who makes fun of Islam should be punished for this, and it is for this reason that they went to the offices of Charlie Hebdo newspaper, and they attacked the journalists and the cartoonists who were there. So I think this is really a complex problem. It has to do with the conditions of people of migrant origin in France. It has something to do also with the presence of racist groups, among French people, and this is a European phenomenon. We see the same thing also in Germany, and it has to do also with the way, people who don't have good education, who are relatively poor, the way they understand Islam. And therefore, I think, complex efforts are needed in order to combat this phenomenon, but I admit that it is not easy.
But Dr. Mustafa, as you said, obviously this is not, this is a complex issue which has many dimensions to it, socioeconomic, economic, perhaps political as well, a feeling of segregation by the North African community in France. But yesterday, the French president, I believe, made a statement. He called for unity and said that this is fanaticism and has nothing to do with Islam. And yet today there was no meeting with the heads of the Islamic community or the Muslim community in France, and only the Jewish community. How did you read that?
I saw the statement of the French president, and I think it was a very good statement. I think, I don't think there is a deliberate effort to discriminate against, heads of Muslim communities in France,
right.
But just because the Jewish people were object to attack, the second or the third attack. In fact, there were several incidents, one of which was directed at a Jewish supermarket in Port de Vincennes, and when the French Prime Minister went to this supermarket, Jewish supermarket, he was booed by Jewish people there who said that the Jews are afraid in France. So I think this is probably the reason the French president met, members
right.
of the Council of Jewish Community in France. So it was to allay their fears,
right.
because they are seen as victims. I think this is the reason. We should add also that, in fact, Muslims also were victims of these terrorist attacks. A policeman of Algerian origin was killed.
Yes.
I think he was outside the offices of Charlie Hebdo, and also a policewoman of African origin. I'm not sure whether she was Muslim or not. She was also killed.
Right.
And one should add that in the Jewish supermarket, there was an employee of the supermarket who is from Mali, who is migrant from Mali, and who is Muslim. And in fact, he did help some of the people who were in the supermarket to hide a sort of big refrigerating room in the supermarket, and this was recognized after that, and they thanked him, and in fact they called for him to be given French nationality. So in fact the Muslims were on the one hand victims of these terrorist attacks, and on the other hand also at least a Muslim man tried to help French people who were in the supermarket. But the reason that the French president met heads of the Jewish community is the fact that members of the Jewish community